Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, welcome to our pre-meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in the hands of Miss Lisa Lambert.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, November 28th. We have approval of minutes from November 14th.
Any issue, anyone? We're good.
So, we have no public hearings or anything. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Christian Miller providing an overview of efforts for the watershed at the Western Delta Watershed Management Planning Team. John Young wants to give information about Men United Against Violence. Alice Donahue is requesting help for funding a nonprofit that feeds and clothes homeless. Pamela Dubose requests a three-way light be installed at the corner of Halls Mill Road and River Duchesne. Clinton Johnson Sr. comments about policing in Mobile. Alex Lofton regarding Jawan Dallas. Latanya Thompson regarding Jawan Dallas. Reverend Tony Allgood, body cams, MPD. Betty Martin, Jawan Dallas. Carrie Williams, Jawan Dallas.
We got the preliminary agenda.
Yeah, they came at the regular time on Thursday. We'd already done the agenda.
So is Tom Holmes not on there anymore?
He canceled.
Thomas Holmes.
And Timothy Hollis, media reports and mayor's comments about Jawan Dallas body cam video. Call for resignation of the chief of staff, city attorney, and police chief. Consent resolutions held over 40-1173. Declare the structure at 401 Claude Harris Drive a public nuisance and order it demolished. CIP resolutions. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. President, I've got an update for Ms. Gregory on this one. This is 401 Claude Harris Drive. This was held over because they did not have a permit at the time, but they were seeking one. The contractor now is the permanent. I would request that we table this one.
Mr. President,
Ms. Davis.
I'd like to go back to these presentations of petitions and other communications to the council. I assume that the city council is going to be asked to publicly release the body cam video in connection with the Jawan Dallas matter. I happened to ask the council's attorney this morning whether the city had any authority, or the city council or the city had any authority to publicly release the body cam footage. And I'd like to ask the council attorney to brief us on that matter.
Thank you, Councilman Daves. The Alabama statutes that govern the release, and release is the wrong term, disclosure would actually be the correct legal term, which took effect in September, provides, and this is from Alabama Code 36-21-212, recordings in the custody of a law enforcement agency shall be disclosed to an individual or personal representative only as provided by this article. That means, in addition to the fact that it classifies these records as not being personnel records, and there's already Alabama Supreme Court authority to say they're not public records, the only way this footage can ever be disclosed to anyone is under this statutory section and the sections related to it that were just passed in September. They can only be disclosed to we've been using the term stakeholder. There's a list of 6 classifications of people who are entitled to disclosure of these recordings. You have to be one of the 6 types of people in this statute in order to be able to view the recording. And also, this is from 36-21-212E. An individual who receives disclosure pursuant to this section shall not record or copy the recording. The clear import of all of this is that these can't just be released to the public. The people who are stakeholders under the statute, if there's not a legal reason to hold it back from them, are entitled to come in and view the footage. They are not allowed to take a copy away with them, and they can't just be released to the public just because people ask for it. And there are some ambiguities in the statute. I think our ordinance that has been proposed was made to address the main one, which is that it says a law enforcement agency can just say no, basically. So our policy, if that ordinance were adopted, would be something along the lines of, unless there's a valid legal reason to hold the recording back, it shall be disclosed. But again, it can only be disclosed to one of the stakeholders, and they cannot have a copy, and it's not a public record or anything amenable to a public records request. The only way outside this statute to get a actual copy of this recording, and indeed you can't get a copy under this, is through the litigation process.
Mr. President.
Mr. Penn?
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Leonard, do you have the 6 stakeholders that's defined?
Yes. An individual whose image or voice is the subject of the recording. In other words, if you're in the recording, you are entitled to ask for it, ask to see it, I should say. A personal representative of an adult individual whose image or voice is the subject of the recording if the adult individual consents. So if you're asking for footage, for example, of yourself, you can authorize a personal representative to view it. A personal representative of a minor whose image or voice is the subject of the recording. Personal representative of an adult individual under lawful guardianship whose image or voice is the subject of the recording. A personal representative of an adult individual who is incapacitated and unable to provide consent. And a personal representative of a deceased individual whose image or voice is the subject of the recording.
Does this mean that under no circumstance can the government release a body cam footage or release body camera footage at all? Is there any circumstance where they would be allowed to do this under the law?
They can do it in response to a subpoena or discovery request in a lawsuit. Otherwise, I think it would have to be governed by city policy. And again, this statute is pretty clear that recordings in the custody of a law enforcement agency shall be disclosed to an individual or personal representative only as provided in this article. There's no provision that says, oh, it can just be disclosed to the general public. And I think that wouldn't be in keeping with this statute. That being said, I don't know of any provision in the law that absolutely says the city can't just release something generally. But again, if that's the case, then the whole procedure in this statute doesn't seem to make much sense.
Mr. Carroll?
Also, I might add, there are some provisions already in our code of ordinances governing privacy for people who are the subject of law enforcement recordings. I looked at this on request a little while back, and I'm not prepared to discuss that right at this moment, but there are some privacy concerns in the release of that type of footage. And so again, I don't think you can just willy-nilly, if you will, just release footage based on, for lack of a better term, requests from the public. You have to have some kind of standing in order to be able to do it.
And one other thing. I mean, without taking the request from the public out of the equation, let's just say in a substantial public interest or as a matter of public safety, could it be released by the government, say prior to it being a part of litigation? So can the city release body camera footage? And maybe this is better reserved for our, don't we have a committee meeting today on this? So maybe this is better reserved for that. But to further just explain my question, as a matter of public safety, could the city, say, preemptively release body camera footage? Or for some other reason besides just a request?
I mean, it seems like it would have to be an extraordinary circumstance. I just don't see anything that again, under our own code of ordinances, there are privacy concerns governing the release of this footage. And again, the footage, even to a stakeholder or the individual depicted or something, again, this statute, this state law, and it only took effect on September 1st. Says shall be disclosed to an individual or personal representative only as provided by this article. So again, there's nowhere written in state law that a law enforcement agency cannot disclose something to the general public except otherwise by privacy laws or other provisions. The only way you can request it is via this statute.
All right, he's made my point that it's nowhere that says it cannot be released. The only other thing is that we're probably going to discuss this in detail at 2:00 today. I'm sorry, 1:00 today. There's some details, I guess, direct detail that I want to discuss, as I've already asked you about wording like shall, can, will release, things like that, that are not currently in the body of the ordinance. Also, a timing issue as to how quickly or how late, because we don't want it to hang over, because we do have a responsibility to the city. I think that we can add some teeth there policy-wise that may help us in the objectivity of transparency here. So we can wait till that time if it's okay with me.
All right, Madam Clerk.
CIP resolutions held over. 21-1271, authorized contracts with Iker Construction Corporation for improvements to the combo fields at Trinity Park and Figures Park. 21-1272, authorized contract with Harris Contracting for drainage improvements, new playground installation, a walking trail, and parking at Mill Street Park.
Mr. President.
Ms. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad to see these items on the agenda in our CIP. This is needed, of course, in our Trinity Gardens Park, Figures Park, as well as Mill Street Park in District 1. We're really excited to have these 3 items on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. President.
Resolutions held over. 21-1273, authorized contract with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Alabama for stating the fees for third-party administration of the city's health, dental, and flexible spending accounts. 21-1274, authorized contract with Michael Baker International for U.S. Highway 45 streetscape improvements. Consent resolutions being introduced. 37-1278. 1279, 1280 are recommending approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a special events retail license to Bottles Up Mobile Inc. for Moon Pie Drop on St. Francis Street. For issuance of a special events retail license for Bottles Up for Sip and Paint for Mardi Gras Park. For issuance of a lounge retail liquor class 2 package store license to Dolphin Market on Dolphin Street. 60-1281, approve award of special bonus to the Administrative Services Employee of the Month. Resolutions being introduced. 08-1282, approve purchase orders for fuel for Wave Transit. 08-1283, approve purchase order to Bay Concrete for Public Services Department, $27,475.
Well,
Ms. Ronald.
This Bay Concrete, this is the smaller batches of concrete used for those outstanding sidewalk repairs throughout the city. Is that correct?
It is. It's
Okay.
just to get us through until our concrete truck comes in.
Okay, I'd ask that we move this to consent if there is no objection to that.
We can just take it up. We don't have to move it.
Okay.
yeah, the $27,000, is that for an individual contractor or is that for our employees?
It's for Bay Concrete, and it's deliver the concrete. It's delivered. And then we're gonna.
Are we self-performing the work?
Yes.
This is also one of those items that's just below 30,000, but in the future would not come and it would be already just executed.
If we allow it.
Yeah, sure, Mr. President. And you see how easy it is to get it through on first read? That I think we all agree that it ought to be taken by consent today.
08-1284, approve purchase order to Intera for annual subscription renewal of Intera Operations Decision Support Software, Will Fire and Rescue Department, $20,171. 21-1285, authorized contract with Red Pest Solutions Southeast Inc. of the Southeast for pest control services at various city locations, $150,402, 3-year contract. 21-1286, authorized amendment to contract with Republic Parking Systems for parking management services.
Mr. President.
Yes, Ms. Reynolds.
This one does not, I just want to confirm and make sure that it does not include anything with the new parking garage. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Call for public hearings, 41-1287, call for public hearing to rezone property located at 1065 and 1067 Chillington Road South from R1 to B3, scheduled January 2nd. Announcements.
Question, we ran by it so quick when we were talking about parking. It seems like on every Thursday afternoon and Friday afternoon at Cathedral Square that we're taking away those parking spaces on Jackson Street and Conti. I mean, it's ongoing. And a lot of times when there's actually nothing going on, those red flags or no parking signs are there. What's the reason now? I mean, that we're already limited to our spaces down there. So it's not always something at the Sanger. So why is it a continual thing right there? Well, I tell you what, can we please look into it and find out? I mean, because we're limited with the parking spaces down there already. And a lot of people get tickets on those because the bags are there and they get ticketed anyway. And,
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes, sir. Last week, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on how we're moving forward. I've always operated on this city council with the understanding that we treat downtown a little bit different than we do the rest of the city inside the Henry Aaron Loop. And last week, Mr. Carroll inferred that maybe I overstepped when we were discussing the zoning for the Civic Center site, and that my intervention in that process was somehow encroaching on his ability to affect his district. But I want to make sure that at least the public understands that we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's going to be proposals coming about in the future about big projects in downtown Mobile. And my representation of District 4 includes how we spend these taxpayer money in downtown Mobile, and I believe they're entitled to have their voices heard when we're spending hundreds of millions in downtown Mobile. So I thought it was always sort of this unspoken process that within the Henry Aaron Loop, we consider that to be downtown Mobile, and we all sort of have a say and give our input and affect the outcome of projects in that area. I wanted to bring that up to everyone because it was inferred that I overstepped, and I frankly just don't see it that way.
Mr. President, may I remind the council that inside the Henry Aaron Loop, that is from Canal Street all the way down around Water, back over to Beauregard, up Broad Street, and back over to Canal Street, that there is a substantial residential population in there. And now even more so with a substantial residential population growing in our downtown area, there's a council person that represents those people. And when those people have concerns about zoning and issues and things like that, they come to their council person. They don't go to District 4 council person. And when District 4 council person chooses to tell the District 2 council person what his constituents are telling him, that there's a problem. So the District 4 council person continues to take on those types of aggressive stances when the District 2 council person is listening to the people in District 2, especially when it came to the Civic Center, and we were having continuous meetings about what was happening there and what they'd like to see, because they live right next door to it. It's not just a residential, a commercialized industry, a place down there that affects just commercial industry. It's everywhere. Now, let's talk about District 4 in this, $500 million development out there. That's an economic development project where money from all over the city is being contributed to it. I guess people from District 2 don't pay taxes and don't contribute to that, and neither they should have no say-so in that, and they should not be aware of anything that's going on out there. And only the District 4 council person should respond to what's in his district when everybody's money in the city is going to that major development. Also, the 1,000 jobs that are going to be out there, I guess you don't want anybody from District 2 or any other districts to be involved with that. And I mean, it's simple now. We can go on with this conversation, or we can agree to be civil and let this go and
right.
take up the best interest of the city.
Okay, we're gonna seize that today. Anything else from this council?
Mr. President.
Ms. Reynolds, we're gonna seize from that. Anything else from this council besides that?
Well, he said a lot of things that are worth responding to. I mean, that are
Not
frankly
right
not
now.
true.
Anything from the administration? All right, we'll see each other at 10:30.